It is January 1684. London is awake, but the river is not moving. For as long as anyone standing on its bank can remember, the Thames has carried the city with it. Boats cross from shore to shore. Barges bring food, fuel, timber, drink, and merchandise. Watermen wait at the stairs. This morning there is no river. There is a road, a white road of ice stretching across the Thames, and people are walking on it. Not one or two cautious figures near the bank. Hundreds. Some carry baskets. Some pull sledges. Some lead horses. Farther out where boats should be moving, men are setting up booths. For a few extraordinary weeks in the winter of 1683 and 1684, London acquires a new street. A street that should not exist. A street built on the frozen Thames. And tonight, we are going to walk across it. The cold had begun weeks earlier. By December, frost had settled over southern England. Roads hardened. Snow and ice covered fields. Water froze in exposed containers. The cold entered houses through shutters, doors, roofs, and walls. There was no central heating waiting behind a switch. Warmth had to be made. Wood had to be cut. Coal had to be bought. Fires had to be maintained. And as the frost continued, fuel became increasingly precious. London was already a smoky city, but severe cold made the air worse. John Evelyn, one of the great diarists of 17th century England, described smoke hanging so heavily over London that it became difficult to see across the street. The cold had changed not only the river, it had changed the air. Imagine stepping out early in the morning. Your breath appears immediately. The street beneath your shoes is hard. Roofs are pale with frost. Smoke hangs between buildings. And somewhere beyond the houses lies something Londoners are coming to see for themselves. The Thames is freezing. The river of 1684 was not quite the Thames we know today. It was wider and shallower in places, and its flow was slower. Old London Bridge crossed the river on 19 closely spaced arches. Its piers could trap ice and debris, slowing the water further. During a severe winter, those conditions made large-scale freezing more likely than it would be on the modern river. But even by the standards of the 17th century, the winter of 1683-84 was extraordinary. The frost continued and continued. On January the 6th, Evelyn recorded that the river was completely frozen. 3 days later, he crossed it himself. By then, the ice was thick enough to support much more than pedestrians. Booths stood on the river. Meat was being roasted. Shops had appeared. Coaches, carts, and horses moved across the frozen surface. The Thames had become ground. Imagine approaching the river from the London side. Normally you would descend toward the water and look for a boat. Now the stairs lead to ice. The people whose livelihoods depend on the river have a problem. Boats cannot move where the river has become solid. And the people of London do what people often do when the world behaves strangely. They adapt. Then they start selling things. At first, perhaps there are only a few temporary stalls. Someone brings food. Someone brings drink. Someone realizes that thousands of curious Londoners want to walk onto the frozen river. A few booths become many. By January the 16th, Evelyn wrote that the Thames was filled with people in tents selling goods as though they were in the city itself. The river is becoming a fair. And by the 24th, it has become something stranger still. Evelyn describes formal streets of booths on the ice. Trades and shops operate there. People move back and forth as though they are on an ordinary road. Coaches travel between Westminster and the Temple. Sledges move across the frozen surface. People slide and skate. There are races, puppet shows, cooks, drinking places, and entertainments. The river has not merely frozen. London has annexed it. For a few weeks, the city behaves as though the Thames has always been a street. As evening approaches, the fair becomes even more unusual. Small fires burn. Food cooks overheat. Lanterns appear. Orange light reflects on ice that had been black water only weeks earlier. London rises on both banks, and the normal boundary created by the river has temporarily disappeared. You do not need a boat. You simply walk. For us, the Frost Fair can look picturesque. For the people living through it, everything is physical. Cold fingers, frozen breath, smoke in the lungs. Hard ground beneath the feet. The smell of roasting meat, the noise of animals, the voices of traders, and always, somewhere beneath the stalls and footsteps, the knowledge that the floor is a river. One business seems especially appropriate. A printing press appears on the ice. Visitors can pay to have their names printed as a souvenir of the occasion. Evelyn records that people, including ladies, wanted their names, the day, and the year printed on the Thames itself. The novelty becomes so popular that he estimates the printer is earning £5 a day from the trade. There is something wonderfully familiar about this. 340 years ago, people were already buying proof that they had visited something extraordinary. A small piece of paper, a name, a date, a frozen river. Nearby, food is being prepared. Historical images and accounts show roasting, stalls, games, horses, carriages, and crowds on the ice. The fair is part market, part street, part carnival. And it is much less comfortable. The same frost that creates the fair also creates suffering. Water supplies freeze. Trades dependent on water are interrupted. Fuel becomes expensive. Plants and animals are damaged by the severe cold. Evelyn writes of trees splitting, livestock dying in places, and poor people requiring assistance simply to survive the winter. He also writes that there is no water available from pipes and engines, and that brewers and other tradesmen cannot work normally. The Frost Fair is therefore not simply a winter festival. It is a festival inside a crisis. Walk away from the brightest booths. The noise begins to soften. The ice becomes darker. Across the river, windows glow faintly. Inside one of those houses, a family is trying to stay warm. The fire is smaller than they would like. Fuel costs money. Someone places another piece of coal into the hearth. Not too much, it has to last. A pot hangs near the heat. Clothes remain on indoors. The windows offer little protection. Outside, London is celebrating on the Thames. Inside, winter is being carefully managed. That contrast is what makes the winter of 1684 so compelling. The fair was real, so was the hardship. In this case, perhaps only a few yards of ice. At one booth, someone buys a souvenir. At another, meat turns over a fire. Nearby, someone laughs while sliding across the frozen river. And elsewhere, another person is calculating how much fuel remains at home. All of them are living through the same winter. Perhaps the ice is cloudy beneath your boots. Perhaps trapped bubbles lie below the surface. Snow covers some sections. Scratches and runner marks cross others. The river itself is invisible now, but you know it's there. That thought must have been difficult to ignore. Every building around you is temporary. Every booth, every fire, every improvised street, because eventually the river will return. The entire fair exists on borrowed time. Perhaps that is part of its attraction. Nobody needs to explain that this cannot last. The fair exists because winter has interrupted normal life. When normal life returns, the fair must disappear. So people visit while they can. They walk across the river. They eat. They drink. They watch. They print their names. They carry home proof. By early February, the winter has already lasted long enough to damage gardens, interrupt trades, trap vessels, and exhaust fuel supplies. On February the 4th, Evelyn visits his garden and finds many plants badly damaged. The following day, he records the first sign that London has been waiting for. The river is still usable. Evelyn's coach crosses the ice, but the warning is clear. The fair's foundation is changing. The booths begin to come down. Imagine owning one of them. For weeks, the ice beneath you has felt almost permanent. You have carried goods onto it. Perhaps you have cooked there. Perhaps you have earned money from the crowds that normal winter trade would never have brought. But now the temperature feels different. Water appears. Edges soften. The surface changes under a boot. The sensible response is obvious. Pack. Canvas comes down. Temporary wooden structures are dismantled. Fires go out. The printer leaves. The cooks leave. The merchants leave. People return to the ordinary streets of London. Not because it is frozen, because it is becoming a river. On February the 8th, Evelyn records an absolute thaw with rain. Although the Thames remains frozen, change has begun. The extraordinary winter street is ending. Eventually, the ice breaks. Dark water appears between white plates. The current takes hold. The frozen surface fractures and moves. The road disappears. Boats return. Watermen can work again. Cargo can move. The city resumes its old relationship with the river, and in a short time, almost nothing remains of the strange settlement that stood there. No street, no shops, no fires, no printer, only the Thames. London remembers. The winter of 1683-84 becomes one of the most famous of the old Thames frosts. Other frost fairs come later. The final great fair takes place in 1814. After that, London changes the river itself. Old London Bridge is replaced. The Thames is embanked. Its flow becomes faster and more controlled. The conditions that once allowed a temporary winter town to appear on the ice become increasingly unlikely, but tonight, none of that has happened yet. It is still 1684. The fair is closing for the evening. One by one, louder voices disappear. A trader covers his goods. A fire settles into red embers. A horse is led toward the bank. The printing press has stopped. Somewhere nearby, a final visitor folds a small printed keepsake and puts it inside a coat. Their name, the date, proof that they stood here. The air is bitterly cold. Above the river, London becomes quiet. You begin walking toward the bank. Your shoes press into old snow. Behind you are the last lanterns of the frost fair. Ahead are narrow streets, smoky chimneys, and dark houses. And beneath you lies the Thames. Still hidden, still waiting. In a few weeks, this road will be gone. The booths will be gone. The footsteps will be gone. The river will erase almost everything placed upon it. That is what rivers do. But tonight, London has borrowed the Thames from the water, and for one impossible winter, people walk home across the river. The ice will hold a little longer,